Hello, hello.
Womp womp womp. My screen doesn't do anything fancy when you give it the old thumbs up.
Next time I'm down there, oh no, I know your problem. You haven't updated your Mac in what it's been like 19 years or something like that.
19 years. I think like when I give the thumbs up, it does something like
Just
nothing.
that.
It see all the nothingness in the background. It's impressive.
See there? Long time no see.
Yeah, what's up, fellas?
This feels so, I don't want to say fake because this is like the realest thing that we get for most of the year. But when we're coming off of the kind of experience that we just had, this you really appreciate the time you get with people, you know, face to face.
Oh yeah. And the dinner, and I saw the photo in Nature's Image Farm dropped a video today. And there's a special photo at the very end of that video. So everybody, don't do it now.
Don't do it now.
After the live is done, watch the video, and you'll see
at the very end. The very end, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't click off it. Don't click off early.
No, don't click off yet. But when you watch it, just know that
very special ending.
There was 4 brochachos having a fiesta, and one of them was crying his eyes out, making the photo happen. It was awesome.
Having a fiesta before the siesta.
Yep.
Oh, that was a much needed siesta.
The photo, of course, it was after one of us here, was arguing and just, demanding that they had the best looking cake ever. There were 2 individuals, but only one of them is here tonight. The best cake ever.
It was good.
Luckiest.
Yeah. Wonder who that was.
Cake.
It was that got the last piece of cake.
Tres leches.
Yeah. Yep.
Tres leches. Anyway.
Yeah.
Those are some of the funnest. Well, here's what's going on, Bruce. Some of the best times are like all the times in between. And there's actually a life lesson, I think, in that, where we're so focused on the destination. Of course, you hear the cliche thing. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. And we've heard that a million times over and over again. But I tell you what, when you're, for those who have no idea what we're talking about, the 3 of us just got back from a one-of-a-kind experience up in Madison, Wisconsin at the Midwest Honeybee Expo. All 3 of us were up there and had a lot of fun just visiting with people, cruising the trade show. And then it was the very first ever Streamteam Beekeeping chat live in front of an audience. And wow, that was something special. That was the first time anything like that has ever been done. And it was an honor that it was the Stream Team. So that was like a great, big, cool thing to do. But if you've been at one of these things and you've got there's all the moments in between. There's the little sidebar conversations. There's the dinners and the lunches and the little moments, very special moments that you have when you're just face to face with people that you love and respect. And so, guys, I mean, I'm just still in that place where, like Bruce, when you first walked into the trade show, and then when I first saw you walk in, it's like, oh, it's like we're brothers, and it's like, oh my gosh, here you are, right? And there's that moment where that feels just almost, it feels different. Like it feels like that is like the different thing. Well, now when we just met like this all of a sudden felt like the different thing because we've just spent so much time together. Anyways, we're still, I guess I'm just still in that mode of just deep appreciation from spending so much time with everybody.
Yeah, one thing I enjoyed about the Midwest Honeybee Expo, well, obviously they did a great job with it. There was a smaller conference, but there were a lot of people there, but it wasn't obviously near as huge as the Bee Expo. And I've been to the Alabama conference, and it is pretty good. But this was just really kind of I think, I don't know. I haven't been to a lot of the local ones. I know Greg, you've been to a lot more, but I guess this is one of the larger ones, isn't it? Kind of the state type deals that you go to. There were, what did I say, over 500 people attendees, plus there were around 700 people there total, I think, including
I
Yeah.
think it, I think
vendors and
when all the
everybody.
numbers came in, it was just over 800 folks.
Okay, so yeah, so it was quite a few people, but
Yeah.
it also felt small enough to have more of a interaction with people, have more time to be
Mhm.
able to kind of sit down and chat, like, really have some serious good conversations with folks, and it was just really
Mhm.
pretty cool. We a couple times, like, I they had a room set up there for us, the people who were going to speak at the conference kind of there, and had lunch, and I got to sit down a couple different days. First day uh, we sat down with Zach. Is it Lamas? Is that his last name? I think it's Lamas, and he's a science guy. He's a researcher, but man, just I learned so much about what they're doing and the Varroa mite and how he's studying the bees and the different theories and principles he has about. He's just doing some great work, and he thinks at a much higher or a much different level than I do when it comes to the little things that um, he's just really trying to understand the why of how things happen and some of the
Mhm.
research he's doing. Brian and I talked to him probably for an hour and a half on
Yeah.
Friday, and then Saturday, Brian and I were there, and David Burns came and sat down with us and talked for probably
Mhm.
45 minutes to an hour. So,
Yeah.
people like that just sit down and just really have a good conversation with them instead of always feeling rushed to get from place to place, and then just met a lot of people, new people that I hadn't met before, and a lot of old familiar faces as well, and had some really good conversations. And plus, it was well done as far as the people who were giving the presentations and stuff too. I peeked in on a couple of those; they were really good, and just a well done conference, I think. And one thing that was really good about it, since I'm from Alabama, it was cold up there, and they had a walkway between the hotel and the conference center. So I didn't spend. I may have spent 30 minutes outside once I got there. After I got there, the whole time just walking back and forth to a couple of restaurants, and then we had to. The last night we were there, they closed the doors on us, so we couldn't go through the tunnel, so we had to walk probably a couple hundred yards to get down there, and through the parking lot, the icy cold parking lot. But it wasn't too bad. It was really a good time. And I talk about like I'm wimpy with the weather, but I'm a little tougher than I may act sometimes. But it was pretty cold up there. And then I came back to this beautiful. Sure, we'll talk about it more tonight. Beautiful, mid 70s weather here in Alabama. It's been pretty awesome the last couple of days. So
Yeah. I enjoyed that up there. I tell you, like that chat, and I just sat off to the side when Zach was talking about uh, picking,
marking,
100 honeybees
yeah,
and putting them in this miniature configuration, and he would literally pick with however he would do it, Varroa mites, and he would paint them and then observe the Varroa mites' movements.
it's
I'm
wild
just like,
stuff.
and I just sat over there just in awe, like he
Really
literally
try, yeah, really trying
painted
to get an
Varroa
idea.
mites and
Yeah, really trying to get an
yeah,
idea of how just the real what Varroa mites actually do and how they do
mhm,
it is what he's trying to figure out. And
yeah,
hopefully, I guess by doing that, we can help figure out how to control the Varroa mite, but even more importantly, control the nasty viruses they're injecting into our bees.
yep,
It's pretty
yeah,
interesting, and I know Greg and him had to
yeah,
talk about that as well. Just kind of, I know Greg, you're really kind of focused on that end of things and some of the things you're trying to do.
Yeah, it was great having a sidebar conversation with him, because a lot of the things that we've been saying, the things that we've been warning folks about, where there wasn't really a lot of information on at all. Zach and I got to kind of just geek out together. It's kind of like when two of the when you're able to have that kind of conversation, and you feel like there's only two nerds in the world who just get so excited on getting into the specific details with it, and you're right there in the same room looking at each other. um, it was pretty cool, and we'll be talking a lot more about this in the spring, especially after we get back from my visit down to go see the Dothan Shogun himself. um, there's going to
ooh,
be a lot of information, I think, this spring that is really going to um, is going to force anybody who's making nukes or anybody who's making queens to highly reevaluate their approach. And I don't want to sound so, teasing about it, but the things that we have been seeing for many years that we couldn't quite put in a nice, pretty little package, the things that our observations, they're more than just that. They are field repeatable, and there's actually a lot of studies going on. And more importantly, there's different studies studying something similar, yet different enough that just continues to confirm that we are getting absolutely nowhere with trying to mechanically remove mites from the equation, and that the future of this is going to be viral resistance with the honeybees. I know we talked about this, guys, a million times, and I think I even brought it up in the treatment-free panel discussion. And I think sometimes, I've not listened back to it yet, but sometimes when you're engaged in dialogue, you have a whole bunch more of the conversation in your head, but then you try to just portray it into like just an easy to digest, Reader's Digest version of it, and you don't quite fully get it there. But I feel like over all these years, it's like I need to go into Walmart and go shopping. So I say, guys, go into Walmart, clear the store, wipe the carts, clean the handles, scrub the floors, and make sure there's nothing anywhere, or reduce my chances of getting sick. That's kind of like our approach on trying to keep mites out of our colonies. The other comparison is comparison B, where I work on my own immune system and my own immune defense, so that when I go in anywhere and I'm exposed to things, that my body has a better chance of actually fighting that off and resisting that. We got to be careful anthropomorphizing, of course, but I've been saying it for years that until we start building viral resistance with these bees, we're going nowhere. And sure enough, this is actually being studied right now. And a lot of folks are seeing the same things, and it's actually very exciting. I don't know that we're going to have any quick and easy answers, and there is no silver bullets, but to me, it was very reaffirming to know that, yeah, you're on the right track for sure. How we get there is going to be a challenge, but it looks like there may be way more hope in that than there is than trying to go into the Walmart and scrub the store of ick. So that was a great conversation.
I love the comment, and I know I'll mispronounce her name. I don't know whether it was Natalie or what is it, Nathalie?
I think it's Nathalie B, but yeah.
Yeah. I love the comment that she made, though. Now, she's just to kind of set the stage here so that everybody knows, in that panel, and I won't disclose everything, just I know that it was filmed, that way folks can watch for that to be dropped at a later date. But her entire operation is treatment free. Okay. And the question was asked, would her colonies survive like in Michigan or, Wisconsin? And she's no. Context is key. So
that was super huge. Yeah.
Yep. So I'll just
however, she did say that, and I think many people maybe in the comments here would agree with this as well, that, her belief is that you can, at least at her scale, and she's got quite a few colonies, but her belief is that you can breed for resistance. But it's just, the whole point is, you don't just stick them in a box and just leave them alone and expect to have bees. Right. You got to breed for the resistance. You got to work towards that. It's a tedious and it can be kind of a complicated process. And I think that's the danger with the treatment-free thing, is if you just throw bees in a box and then both your hives die and you just give up, is because someone told you should never treat or never take care of really do anything with your bees, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Whereas if you really can learn about the bees and kind of figure some things out, if that's the direction you want to go, there's a lot of work involved, but I think that you can do it. But like Greg, like you said, Brian, and she mentioned that, her bees are treatment free. They are basically, she has customized them. They are adapted to her area. You take her bees and you move them up to Michigan or Wisconsin or California, you know, where all the crazy stuff is going on, and bees are swapping mites around here or there, they might struggle because they're not really designed to deal with the same. You know, they're designed for her area in Texas, and so that's something that's important, I think. And beekeeping is so regional, and it does make it tough. What was the fellow's name on the panel, Greg? The commercial guy,
Ryan Stern. Yeah,
Ryan Stern. And then we had Emily on there from Beefit Beekeeping, and then Nathalie. I don't know what's her last name, Greg.
Nathalie B is
Nathalie B.
Yeah, is what she goes by on.
So Greg did a masterful job of putting a commercial guy who you know, he has a commercial operation, hauls bees across the country. That's how he makes a living. You know, so he takes them to California pollination. His bees are exposed to a lot of things. And then, of course, we know of Emily, who's BeFit Beekeeping, who is trying to get there. She's working on some of the same stuff, but also has started off, and she's done a lot of some treatment-free stuff as well. And she's kind of trying to work towards that goal, but she does treat. So, you know, and then we had Nathalie, who is completely treatment-free. She uses top bar hives, but all three were very reasonable. All three recognized each other's point, and they talked in a very civil conversation with Greg as the moderator. I think a lot of things were learned in that really, you know, and Greg, would you say something there is that, you know, if you want to have kind of, it's like almost like sometimes the treatment-free people almost attack each other a little bit, and let's just all try to work together, I think, and help each other out, and realize that there are different ways to do it that can be successful. No one way is quote unquote the best or the only way to do it. And that's what gets under my skin a little bit, is when people just say, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you're wrong and I'm right. That just really gets under my skin. I just don't believe that. I think a lot of people are keeping, you know, a lot of beekeepers have a lot of bees in every situation, and they have success doing their thing. And so who am I to judge what people are doing? Where I get a little concerned, though, is someone who's brand new, and they get into that situation where people are saying, oh, you shouldn't treat your bees, and then their bees all die because they maybe they don't have the genetics that are appropriate, maybe they just don't know what they're doing. And we lose bees when we do treat too, when we do feed and we do all the things. You can still lose bees, but I think it's a good idea to set people up and let them go the more traditional way initially, and then kind of maybe work towards figuring out what they want to do in the future. And that's just my opinion, and that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it.
There you go.
I'm looking forward to getting that conversation out before that one launches. Last year's I'll publish. And what's interesting with these kind of conversations is there's a lot of misunderstood or non-understood information when it comes to detail, context, scale. And last year when we had Michael Bush, James Lee, and Ian Stepler in person on the panel, there was actually, I don't want to sensationalize the conversation too much by saying mind-blowing information, but there was a lid blown off of some never before understood information, and that really shaped up, I think, the appropriateness of a particular participant's experience. And I don't want to sound so evasive, but I'm also being respectful and being as much in the middle as I possibly can. And because of that, you're able to let everyone, you know, have a voice, and at the same time ask follow-up questions to better understand that. This year with this panel, boy, I mean, I made it a point to not send anybody any questions ahead of time. I made it a point to not let my own thoughts or experience pre-lead or mislead where I wanted to take the conversation. And actually, I don't know that I've ever been, I wasn't nervous shaking in my boots to have the conversation, but I could feel that I had a great responsibility to be in as much in the middle as possible to help navigate the conversation, but to do it in a way where I do have experience with this in the past. And I think because of that, there was a certain respect and responsibility that I knew I had to maintain with the conversation, in letting all these voices kind of come forward with their approach, with their experience. And because of that, I knew I could not go in there with any leading questions. I knew I could not go in there and try to misdirect the conversation. And so going into there with a room of nearly 400 people, with 3 guests, and not have questions or an outline or anything, you could see where some folks might find that intimidating. But for me, I knew that there was going to be some truth that was going to be revealed. There was going to be some misunderstood or non-understood information that was going to be revealed through honest conversation. And that's why that panel discussion, I think, was so important and so valuable. I'm looking forward to getting that out, because there was some gold that was mined through that conversation, that I think is very, very important and does set the tone and the scale and sets a proper understanding and baseline of treatment free. And I love every single one of those folks on there are awesome. I love them, respect them. But there seems to be a fanaticism within the beekeeping world. And I mean, you could have it on both sides. Bruce, Brian, it kind of reminds me more of, fanaticism when it comes to religion, where you can have just complete different opposites. When it comes to when someone is so passionate and believing something a certain way, they will almost die on the hill to support it, even if that thing isn't necessarily a truth. And in this community with treatment free and treaters, I guess, as we were to be called, I have learned through a lot of conversation that the only thing that treatment-free beekeepers hate more than treaters is treatment-free beekeepers.
Yeah.
They battle it out over semantics constantly, over this and over that. I mean, it's unbelievable. But it is what it is. There's a lot of great information to learn from each other, but they are so concerned with dividing over semantics on, that's not treatment free enough, or that really isn't treatment free at all, or it's interesting. I love and respect them all, but I think if we focused on the thing that we actually love, the bees and beekeeping, and understand this is all different approaches, sometimes folks are letting that divide them to the point to where they are just seething and frothing at the mouth in disagreement. And that's an interesting human dynamic. And that's with treatment free. It's with treaters too. But it was a great opportunity for me. And that's why I think the Midwest Honeybee Expo is such a special conference, because they are bringing in those voices, and that is so super important. They are bringing in the voices of everybody within this beekeeping space to have those conversations, those difficult, challenging, upsetting even conversations, treatment-free or treating. That's huge. So rather than just discount something and say, that's not for everybody, we don't want it here, here's a place where there was treatment-free top bar beekeeping being discussed from practitioners who are doing it successfully. And to me, I thought that was really, really cool. And even though that's not for me, that's not what I do in our operation, there's still something we can always learn from everybody. I'm going to get off my pulpit now.
That wasn't really a pulpit. That was just neutral ground right there. I mean, that's what we need to. Everybody has to form their own opinions. Everybody's got their own opinions, and mine has changed. It still it changes all the time. I'm always like, that's why I try to. I hope I have an open mind towards things. I hope I can learn from others. But in the end, you have to just kind of figure out what works best for you, or try to figure out what works best for you in your operation, in your area. And each of us is going to be a little different. And so whenever someone says something, quote unquote, or they give the impression that, hey, I've got it figured out, that's the person I'm going to run from as fast as I can, because,
amen.
I've known my mentor beekeeper. He just kind of was like, Bruce, when you get the bees figured out, let me know, because it's like, you just don't, you never really figure them out. There's so many variables that change constantly. Even talking to Zach about the studies he's doing with the mites, and just even he was talking about the viruses and how they can change so quickly, and just everything is always changing. So if you get locked into one way of doing things, you might just get hit upside the head, and if you're not careful and get decimated, it could happen anyway. But I think it's important just to keep the options open and just don't be closed-minded about any of it. That's just my opinion on it.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
I tell you, the conversations up there though, I loved them though, and the ones that I'm referring to, it's your panel. All out love that everybody was respectful,
Absolutely.
It was fantastic conversation. And then it was the little like sidebar conversations as well. I mean, like when we were sitting listening to Zach and and I didn't know everybody personally, but afterwards, after like a day or so, I kind of learned who they were. And you had those treatment free individuals that are researching, and you had those that are looking at, researching treatments, and everybody was cordial. Everybody was great. So I loved those conversations. That's why I just sat on the sides a lot of times and just sat there trying to consume as much of the information as possible, just because those moments right there, I was just like, wow, it's great information. So I was just trying to just be that all consuming individual sitting off to the side. So yeah, loved him. Greg, thank you.
Yeah, also, the sidebars, we had a real good conversation with James Lee, Greg. He's a guy that, he's just, it was just so cool to just kind of see.
Yeah.
I've never really gotten into the what's the word? Into the weeds with people, as far as like all the different, like the way people think about stuff as much as I did at this conference, the science behind why people think the way they think. And there are some people really thinking really deep about solutions and trying to figure things out. It's not just none of it, these people that they had that I was able to talk to, David Burns too. And all of them were they put a lot of thought into what they're doing and a lot of effort and work into it. And they're really trying to figure things out. And so there are some really brilliant people out there. Earlier in the chat, DC was something about he said something to the extent of I'll let the experts do the queen, work on the genetic stuff and all that. That's kind of how I feel about it. I'm gonna let the experts be experts and try to capitalize on that. I just don't have the time or really it's not in my personality. I'm just not a researcher. That's just not my personality. People often will say, well, Bruce, you just need to brief your best queens. And I agree with that. The problem is it's just a matter of timing and just a matter of all the things that I'm trying to do. It's just very difficult for me to do that. Of course, that would be really cool to do that, but maybe in the future I'll be able to. But for now, trying to glean off of you guys and other folks in the chat here, and just other people that kind of have things figured out seemingly better than I do. And thanks, Bruce. Don't have to call me brilliant. But anyway, yeah. So
he's crazy. Don't pay no attention to him.
Who is that? Who's in my? Who is that? Who?
Nuts. Now
the
crazy.
NKY honeybees.
NKY honeybees. Well, he's not even NKY honeybees anymore because he's talking about changing his channel name again. And when I first met him, it was A and N. And now he's this, and now he's going to be some other kind of like imposter channel. So I don't know.
He's probably more brilliant than me, but I'm just trying to get it figured out anyway. But so I just was really impressed with the knowledge out there, the people working on it. Even Greg, we've had some really kind of deep conversations about these bees, on here and offline as well. Just people trying to figure things out, and that's what's cool about it. If we can all just try to get along a little bit and help build each other up, because like you said, Greg, the thing that really matters is the bugs in a box.
Right.
We're all looking in this hive and trying to figure out what to do, and we're all manipulating and managing it in our own way. But that's really where the emphasis should be, more than an ego pride thing for us humans, trying to figure out what the best way to do it is and tell other people that our way is right, if that makes sense.
Yep.
The truth is the bees are pretty darn resilient when you think about it. We just walking through the North American Honeybee Expo and the Midwest Honeybee Expo, just walking through a trade shows all the different kinds of hives, all the different kinds of products, all the different kinds of hive tools, frames, all the different things, that people are doing, all the different kinds of things they're putting their bees in to try and survive, trying to maximize survival, all the different products, treatments, everything that goes into these bugs in a box, and they're resilient. If you just throw just an old rotten box out there, as long as it's pretty much airtight or is closed in space, they can survive. Heck, they can survive on a limb in a tree here in the South. I'm not sure how long they last up there, but they're pretty darn resilient little critters. And so, but I do believe once you take them out of nature and you stick them in a man-made box in a bee yard with multiple other colonies, they then become somewhat domesticated. You're not, I mean, there are wild animals, but they don't do that in nature. Beehives aren't like 30 hives stacked on top of each other, in nature. And so we have introduced a lot of variables that they normally don't have to deal with when we do that, but they're still pretty darn resilient, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
It was actually an interesting part of the panel discussion, and we're definitely going to have to circle back and go a little bit deeper on that. But we too often have this mentality where we say, the bees have been doing it for gazillions of years on their own. They can figure it out too. But the fact of the matter is, Mother Nature really only needs the honeybee's survival at such a low rate to perform any specialty pollination that it's not a fair comparison for us to sit to pretend that honeybees exist at 100% survival rates. We have to be honest with this relationship and understand that even if you have one or two colonies, you are now in the commodity crop arena where you are now taking bees, putting them into a box, and whether you know it or not, that box is really designed to produce a crop, and it's either more bees or it's honey. Not many folks want to spend $400 or $500 on a hive kit, put bees in it, and then just let the bees leave or die. Once you are invested in it and there's management involved, a lot of times, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I would say for a significant majority of folks who are listening to this right now, if they're investing in bees and equipment, there is an expected yield associated with this investment. There is an expected return on this investment at some point in time. It might be the return might be keep them alive for the first year. So the second year, we get honey or can make splits. But once you're honest with this and realize that this is bee farming, no matter the scale, it starts to frame things up a little bit different. Now, that's not to say that because of that, we somehow also accept that we can push them past their boundaries, or we can mistreat them for the sake of honey or the intended yield. But this isn't a Tom Seeley forest. That doesn't exist anywhere. The bees are not living 2 or 3 miles spread apart, one colony to the other, where virus and transmission is a fairyland. That's not what's going on here. That is not the American beekeeping system. And you got to understand that. You got to accept that. And that really does start to dictate this relationship with our bees. Not to say there aren't things that we can do that maybe is more holistic, things that we can do that is maybe more in tune to the natural environment. However, this isn't just bees in a tree that magically shows up behind our house in a nice, pretty spot where we put a thinking chair out and just watch the bees and do their thing. We're taking them out of context into our context. And then when we do that, things absolutely change.
Yep. The other there's the other debate also about feeding.
Feeding?
Yeah, you know how there's those just leave them go. Don't touch them, don't treat them, don't feed them, do nothing. If they're meant to live, they're going to live. Now, we haven't done any updates yet, but I'm going to show a picture. Let me see here if I can do it. Image. Do I have an image? Here we go. Here's an image. Maybe. Did I do it right?
You're the guru of electronics and tech.
It said there was an issue. Let's see here. Maybe, I don't know. let's see. Oh, I got it open over here. So I got to close it and then do it again. If this don't work, I'll just open it up on the screen, and it's not going to work. It's actually going to look at this. It's like I have never done this before. Wow. Oh my. All right, I'm going to share a screen, maybe. I'm wondering if I can even do this. Now, there we go. Okay. My colonies, when I go out and check them yesterday, that colony there has gone through 2 Hive Alive fondants already. And I added a third onto practically every single colony that was still alive. So,
talk to us about that, Brian. Looks like we're looking at a story and a half.
Yep.
As
It's
you
a
crack through your colonies there, are you seeing a difference as far as who's eating the most right now? Doubles, singles, or story and a halves?
Well, so I've only got one colony that is in a double, and that it was a combine that I did.
Mhm.
And then I don't know whether it was an optical illusion, but I kept looking. And when I'm in the yard standing next to it, I would look and I would say, well, that's a double deep. And then when I'd get up there into the yard, it's like it kind of just blended in, and I never reduced it to the story and a half. So it is what it is. But of the ones that are alive, now I did have some dead outs, and I'll show it. I did video it. So everybody, you're not going to get all of those details. You'll have to watch the video. But for my ones that are alive, there were, well, my hex hive is still going. The bees were down in the frames though. So I couldn't like quite see how large it was, but when I pulled up the Reflectix, bees started walking up out of the frames, and I thought, well, they're in there. So I just, I shut it back up. But one other hive was a little smaller. And by smaller, I mean, I'm talking there was still like 6 frames of bees in there, but then all the other ones were like that, very active. Now it was 54 degrees. So, they were not clustered. There was more bee poop than I had ever seen in snow in my entire life. It looked like World War III had gone on as far as yellow droplets in the snow, but they were all very similar like that. And I'll tell you what, like the bag of fondant that you see in there, every single bit of fondant that was there, for the most part, it was annihilated and gone. So it's like, well, take them out of their environment, put them in these little boxes, manipulate them so that we get a honey crop, and then do nothing and watch them die. Well, that's not me. I choose to feed them. And so they got more fondant. I've gone through, I think, probably more fondant with this winter, though, than past prior years.
Brian, last year you had some packages? Were those Italian queens?
Greg knows the exact genetic line.
Carniolan hybrids.
Did you replace them though with no? So
nope. No,
because the Carniolans, they'll breed back in the wintertime too, right, Greg? Kind of like Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Italians, like my bees, they never really. Now, if it was super cold, I guess they would breed back some, but they always have, they have a pretty packed out hive.
Mm-hmm.
The healthy ones do, the Italian / Cordovan queens that I have, and so. But yeah, that looks like a really nice.
Are you sure those bees were? Are you sure those bees were alive? I mean, those were packaged bees from Georgia. Are you sure?
I know in Ohio where it's been like negative temperatures.
Are you sure?
Fake news. I probably made this. It's probably AI generated. Although if it was AI, I could probably zoom in and find little sombreros on all the little bees.
I wish I had a sombrero. I would have worn it tonight. That would have been fun.
Oh, that would have been great. Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that's I mean, they were just I truthfully, for what, February 10th, because I checked them yesterday. I was surprised to see the size of those colonies. Now, last year, so the rebuilding that I did last year, they were all packages, and I did not want to get into messing with any of the genetics. I didn't want to replace any queens. I wanted to grow them out. Those were the queens that they were established with. I didn't want to have any hiccups of trying to pinch a queen and then introduce another one and then have them say, well, no, we don't like this. So, or we're going to supersede her. And I didn't want like to get myself into some pattern of X number of weeks where that colony was, instead of moving forward, they were kind of stalled. So I decided very early on that I was not going to do any like queen replacements, so to say. So that they're doing good. I'm 100% content with my survivors that are over there. I'm pretty darn happy with them. So, oh boy, let's see what. I got a heartwarming message in my. Let me see here. A heartwarming message.
Oh wow.
Here we go. I learn a lot from all of you, my friends. You see, I gotta here. I don't even have my glasses. Here we go. You see what you do to me?
You need to have a tissue handy, Brian. A tissue handy for you.
I started beekeeping and watched Brian, who was maybe a year in. Of course, he was an expert by then. First beekeeper I learned from, so I must be an expert too. Oh man, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Those are good people right there.
For sure.
Yeah.
You guys were already 45 minutes in. How about that? How's that happen? I don't know how that happens.
I have no idea.
Bunch of knuckleheads just love talking about bees, and
I'm telling
everything else. We just getting warmed up.
Yeah. This conversation here is exactly like your panel, Greg, where I did not want it to end. It needed to go about another hour and a half. And I think everybody that was in the panel, oh yeah, they were in full agreement as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was just, the panel was interesting because you had, was it Ryan on one end?
Yeah.
Nathalie on the other, and then Emily in the middle. And Nathalie said she basically really believes the fact that you can breed and you can have treatment-free bees. However, she said that the situation bees are in, like in Ryan's case, that's not possible because he's moving across the country and everything like that. So she understands that. And then Ryan said, I would love to be able not have to treat my bees. It would be wonderful. And I respect people. Kind of like my takeaway was he respects people who are doing that. He's like, but I just have to in my situation. And so, and then Emily, I think, Emily's tried the treatment-free thing and she's seen the need for it. And her goal, I think, would be to get to that. But she's kind of in the middle. She does what she has bees in California right now, I believe, as well. So they're out there. And so she's had to move them and they've just kind of discovered they need to treat them. But I think she'd love to not have to. So, and just a phenomenal conversation. And they were all very cordial. They were all, that's how it should be in every conversation we have with people, whether we agree with them or not. We should be able to recognize the value of each person on the panel and what they're doing and realize that everybody has value and just have some respect for each other out there. It'd be so much nicer. And I think most people do, but there are just a few that get out there and they just don't respect anything anyone on the other side. You see it all over in everything we do.
Right.
Politics, religion, bees, everything. You see this vast. People are polarized, but I think if nothing else, my opinion on the beekeeping thing is I think beekeepers for the most part are pretty reasonable, and I think a vast majority of us are just trying to do what's right for the bees, and I think I think we're all trying to figure it all out, and I think there's a lot of respect out there as well. It's not all gloom and doom. I think there's a lot of good things happening right now for sure.
Oh yeah.
To your point.
No, I was just going to say, I love that conversation though, because throughout that conversation, everybody was smiling and very respectful of one another. You know?
At the same time, being willing to defend their position.
Yep.
That was the difference. Is
Mhm.
we don't have time to go down this road tonight, but
No.
it's very easy on social media when you disagree with somebody. It's like the worst part of you could come out. And it's been quite a long time actually since I've ever gotten any. I've learned from some old timers to never give any unsolicited advice. And even when your opinion is solicited, you have a great responsibility to use your words in a way that actually does good. You know, we are warned so many times about our tongue in Scripture, where it is one of the greatest weapons that we have. And once those words leave your lips, there is no turning them back. And understanding that we all love bees and we want to keep our bees alive, and we want to continue this amazing calling to be keepers of the bees, and we want to be able to have this fellowship in this community to do it together. When you put that, when you frame that up correctly, there's not a lot of room for hate. Unfortunately, anytime that anyone feels that their opinion, position, or stance is threatened or pushed against, the human man has this reactionary condition, and that unfolds differently. That reactionary condition could just be, well, okay, well, let me think about what they said, and maybe I'm missing something, or it goes into immediate defense mode. Bruce, I mean, you said it very well there just a couple minutes ago. A lot of folks only engage in conversation long enough so that they can speak. They're not actually hearing what anybody has to say on the other side, and they're just waiting for their opportunity to just let a rip. And what I really appreciated about this panel discussion is that because you were face to face, now I want to be careful how I say this, but because there's a moderator and because it's a panel discussion in front of 400 people, and because it all is being videoed, that may influence the behavior, that may influence how somebody responds in conversation. But I think in this case, it did it for the positive, because you're in a room right now, you're literally elbows with another beekeeper, where every single one of them, and I chose them specifically because they were passionate about what they do. They are very good at what they do, and they always want to be doing better. And they will entertain somebody else's thoughts and ideas, and at least spend the time to try to understand that other person's position. And then when it doesn't line up, or somebody is starting to maybe push a little bit against, they were able to have respectful discourse with each other, and we could go back and forth. And we actually could weave this beautiful conversation that went to and fro. And that's what I really appreciate. And I think if we did a lot more of that, we could really find some solid solutions at a bare minimum, better understand each other, not just beekeeping, but life in general. And so I think it's going to be a really great conversation to publish. I don't know that everybody is in a place to engage in conversation like that. And I guess my challenge, and the reason that I'm starting to get up on the pulpit about this right at the moment, is that there's a great responsibility when you are sharing your thoughts, views, and expressions, your opinions with anybody, whether it's just this, whether it's your thumbs, or it's with your mouth. And if we took that with a little bit more responsibility, I think we could actually get a lot more done. And at a bare minimum, we could stop spreading the hate that is out there in all things. Anyways, I'm gonna
Greg,
leave that there for
the
now.
Lord gave us one mouth and two ears for a reason, right?
Ah,
How many times, and this has happened to me, even people that I think are just I can never ever get along with or never understand their side of the situation. But how many times have you ever been talking with someone? And I've even done this recently when it comes to bees. A little bit of this happened maybe in Wisconsin, maybe a little bit of it at the Bee Expo, maybe a little bit just through these chats. But how many times do you have in your mind how something's supposed to be? And like you said, Greg, all I'm thinking about is how I'm going to respond without even listening to what they're really saying. But if you just wait and bite your tongue, and like Keith says, maybe you got a post typed out and then you just delete it, just going through that thought process. Maybe if we could just look at the other person and just listen to them a little bit, we can start to understand who they are. Even if we don't agree, we can learn to respect them, and we can learn some things, from everybody. And so that's really hard to do in this world of hyper polarization with all the social media and stuff. It's really hard to do that because conversations, I think, on via, electronic conversations, or on social media, it's the worst, where people they just kind of dive and bob in there. They just kind of go in there, they'll throw a punch and then leave, and it's out there in the internet just for everyone to see. You can just be mean and nasty without any repercussions or consequences that way. And if you just kind of, and I've tried really hard to kind of avoid that. And I do better when I don't do it. If I just will not respond, but it's so hard sometimes to do that. But man, just be respectful for each other. I really think that, and right now that this is gonna be one little thing about this, and we're gonna get away from it because I don't want to dive into this. But the world right now politically is just crazy. It's so polarized, and it's polarized in every aspect of our lives, but especially I think it politically, where it's almost like people from the two sides don't even look at the other side as human. It's gotten to that point.
You're
And I
right.
think
Yeah.
that just needs to stop. It's kind of ridiculous. I've got family I can't necessarily understand in kind of in some of the certain parts of the country, and I know I don't agree with them politically, but they're good people, but it's like I just don't even wanna, and I'm sure they probably feel the same way about me. It's almost like you can't have a conversation or have a relationship because you just know you're just thinking about what they're thinking in the background, and why is that? It didn't used to be that way. We didn't used to just hate each other because we had a different view on something. It wasn't like that, but I think the big reason for that, I think social media has played a major role in that. Social media, instant videos, instant information, instant opinion pieces out there, and depending on which side you kind of gravitate towards, then that becomes facts to you. I mean, I wasn't there in a lot of these things that have happened in anything. I'm having to depend on what other people are saying about it, and so we form opinions and become very polarized. And I just think that's dangerous, and I think it's horrible. But I'm guilty of it myself. Sometimes it's probably good to pull away a little bit. That's political. There's some of that in the beekeeping world as well, but I don't think it's quite as hyper polarized. I know it's not as hyper polarized as some other things, but hopefully we can never let it get to that point. There are people on the fringe in everything. There are people on the fringe in beekeeping and everything else that are polarized themselves, but we don't have to be that way. And I'm kind of, throughout my beekeeping journey, I've gone back and forth. Like I've just kind of, I've just really changed throughout the time because I hope I've been willing to listen to other people's opinions. I may disagree or I may not have the same opinions as you, but if I can listen to it, for example, even when oh my goodness, no, I'm not upset about that. I thought it was awesome, but what was I going to say? I don't know what I was going to say. I probably talked long enough, but even even when I've been set on one way of doing things, I've been willing to kind of over time listen, and sometimes I get softened, and then I try something else, and that may work better. When I was doing videos back in the day, I was trying to figure out how people put music to the videos, which I do that a little bit now. I'm trying to figure out how people do this, how people do that. I was just on my phone doing it. I was using iMovie on my phone to do everything, and the choices on iMovie on my phone were not very good for music. And so I was like pounding people with music while I'm in the bees, all this kind of stuff. And just one example of what happened. This one guy said, "Man, don't use music. That's kind of obnoxious," is kind of what he was saying. And at first I'm like, "Man, what are you talking about?" It kind of upset me. But then when I went back and watched the video, and I could see, he was kind of telling the truth. It was a little bit obnoxious. And so I've tried to kind of all those things, if we can, sometimes we kind of draw back a little bit, or we kind of bow our shoulders a little bit when someone comes at us with a criticism or with a critique. But how many times have you guys ever thought about it later and realized maybe they were right, or at least partially right, and been able to adjust and adapt what you're doing because someone said something that may have been a little critical, but you realize, hey, you know what, that guy was right or that lady was right. And if we just are never willing to change, then we'll never get better. And so, off my soapbox now. I just really feel like that's important to be able to. We have pride. We all want to be right. Everybody does. But sometimes we can lower that pride down just a little bit. We can all work together to become more successful.
That's very well said, Bruce. But what came to mind as you were saying that is, you know, as humans, we are these spiritual creatures being carried in a blob of flesh and bone. And because of that, we've got this certain way of thinking about things, this certain tribal nature that we have, where it's survival all the time. The trouble with that is, with like social media and things of that nature, we are trying to communicate and, in a way, engage in a sense of tribalism, community, and fellowship on a platform that doesn't line up with historic man. And when you are engaged in these ways, to either confirm or to oppose the bias of this is my tribe, or this is right, or this is safe, this is secure, this is good, this is bad. When you do that, there is this instant response, this instant mechanism that it does something to our brain. It activates a dopamine hit, and you are constantly trained on this reaction creates the dopamine, and it's just boom, 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 over and over and over and over and over again. And although we may think that this is wrong or this is not right, you are still quick to, you know, like years ago, you know how quick I would be if someone were to say, "Hey, you big dummy, you're old, you're fat, you're ugly, and your bees look like crap." You know how fast I would be to get on there and just like something nonsensical, probably just a goofy meme, right? Like, just to respond back. The problem with this is it still happens all the time for the as dumb of a reason. But where I'm going with this is, you can take two beekeepers who love bees, have the same experience of loving the smell and the sound and the buzz and the vibration and the warmth and just the whole thing. Two beekeepers. And if they were in a bee yard in that moment, they would just be so in love in the moment that nothing else would matter, right? But you separate them and you put them on two phones and you say, boy, 80 degrees is too hot, or 70 degrees is too, and it's all of a sudden it's this thing going on. What's interesting, and what I don't want to go all the way there. But I'll say this. He's not going to care if I throw his name out there, because he knows I love him. And the guy's got a great heart. And he is very passionate about what he does. And we all, when we are passionate about what we do, we express ourselves in a way. And for some folks, it's a love or hate kind of a thing. There are a lot of folks who are absolutely upset, disgusted, and hate our approach with beekeeping because we put God first, and we're not a share to give God all the praise and all the glory for every blessing in life, including to this calling to be keepers of the bees. And for some people, that absolutely rubs them the wrong way, makes them sick to their stomach. They turn off the channel, they hit it, they give us a thumbs down, and they send us a hateful comment. Fine. But however, there are folks that I know that if we wanted to let that part of us out with our thumbs and comment back and forth, it would look like one thing. But when you are in the same room and you're face to face and you're heart to heart with that person, there's no room for that. We specifically had a wonderful sidebar conversation that just went in circle after circle after circle after circle with somebody who was very, very passionate about their approach with beekeeping. And that same conversation would be impossible to have doing this or doing this. That conversation could only be had when you can sit right next to somebody, when you can look them right in the eye, you can hear the inflection, you can see the body language, but more importantly, you can see the heart of somebody through how passionate that they are with their approach. That is really important, and has become a very lost opportunity that is why things like the Midwest Honeybee Expo, the North American, the West Virginia Bee Fair, the EMBA, the list goes on and on. That's why it's so important to show up and put time into people, to have those real life connections and experiences. And I can tell you, it has done my heart so good to spend so much time with so many people from all over the country these last few months. We have a way of letting our hearts get hard for all the wrong reasons. But when you're right there in the room and you're face to face and you better understand the heart of the individual, no matter the action or no matter what it is that you think you are seeing them portray digitally, when you're there face to face, heart to heart, that is when the true beauty comes out. And so I would encourage folks, if you can get out to a conference, a workshop, anything, put the effort into getting to know somebody and know their heart before you cast too much judgment. And I am guilty as charged. I'm going to step down off my pulpit now, fellas.
Yeah, there was at least one person this past weekend that I had a very similar experience with that, and it may be the guy you're talking about, Greg. Just got to know the guy a little better, and it was just a great guy and loves his bees, and he's doing all he can to try to figure some things out. And so, just give people some grace. I mean, why not, right? Also hurt to give somebody some grace.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with trying to defend your views or points. Nothing wrong with sharing those points, but just, some people, and if someone lashes out, we never know what they're going through. We just never know what's going on in their life. We just got to be careful. We're all a little bit weak, I think. They do some things and we bow up a little bit, but just if we could have a little bit of grace and you can never go wrong for standing on your values, defending your values, but also giving others some grace. Brian, I think we got a few comments started there. We want to start going through some of those.
I started a couple of them. Yeah. Let me see here. Pat, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Beekeeping season's coming in hot. Couple weeks.
It sure is. Ooh, yeah.
Very
for
fast,
you, Greg.
Greg Burns sent you a message today. Hit me back as soon as you get a second. Finishing up details on our workshop. Have to go print ASAP. I want to get your logo. Cool. Tom, we literally just got in last night at like 10:45, 11 o'clock. So we're running ragged to get caught up, but I'll take a look there and be happy to get that to you.
Yeah. Mr. Greg Burns, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you.
For brochachos.
Go watch Greg's last video that just got published today, and watch it to the end, because at the end you'll see when we're talking about brochachos and sombreros, you'll see what they're talking about. It's hilarious.
That was
we recruited Tom from Via to be part of the brochachos that night, so it was pretty fun.
I mean, how could you not? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that later, but obviously everyone watching this screen can see there's 3 white guys who love bees talking about bees, but I don't think that we were ever any whiter than we were in that moment. And you'll just have to watch the end of that video to just see how white we could actually get. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Backstory is we were at a Mexican restaurant. We went in there, and when you go into a Mexican restaurant and all the people that are serving are Mexican and all the people that are eating are Mexican, you're probably in a pretty good place, or at least Latino.
In the right place.
There were a couple of other people, but we walked in and it was definitely, it was authentic. It was the real deal. It was pretty awesome, pretty cool place.
Yep. Yeah, it was a legit Mexican restaurant. I'll say that.
Spot, yep.
If you want to see how 4 of the whitest white guys attempt to fit in when they're in a culturally diverse situation, then I would encourage you to check out the video that we just posted today, the Midwest Honeybee Expo video, and see what is going on there.
All the way to the end. Very end is where you'll see
all the way to the end.
I can't think of the name of the video. It's got maybe it's like Streamteam fan chat. There's 4 of us on the front there, and that was really cool because we got a couple fellas who are Streamteam fans. They came by the booth, and we got to we put them on camera. We made a video with them, put them on the spotlight there, and got to hear a little bit about their beekeeping. So
it was good.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it. Kevin here. When doing the Demaree, I haven't done it yet. I've read a ton about it. After the flow and you pull everything off, what do you do? So basically, what am I going to do with the bees? Because I'm going to have these monster colonies. So I will always have a story and a half. And then depending on the colony sizes, it's just going to be, I know I'm going to put my supers back out. So I'm going to put the wet supers back out to let them, just clean up, get things all nice and tidy. We'll see how it goes, Kevin. So I don't want them to swarm, though. That's the whole purpose of that. And, it was one of the things that David actually spoke about during his speech.
Hey, David Burns.
Yeah, David Burns. He spoke about the Demaree, and I've seen so many people talk about the Demaree. This will be my first year doing it, so I will show everything. And if I mess it up, well, you guys can critique me. So
yeah, I've got some thoughts on that. I've never done a true Demaree either. I've considered doing a lit. I've seen 2 presentations on it in the past month. One was by Lawrence at the North American Honeybee Expo, Black Mountain Honey, and the other was by David Burns. And David Burns presented it from a double deep strategic standpoint, which is what I try to run. So there were different ways to do it. What I found is, like with everything else, you have a quote unquote technique, the Demaree technique or method, and then you have everybody's variation of it, but the principles are the same. And so it looks really interesting. But I will say that whenever you have a bee hive that's really packed out with bees, this is my experience right here in Southeast Alabama. Is if you watch my videos from last year, and I have some pretty good sized colonies, and they have a lot of bees in them. And then when we pull honey in late June, early July, I just pull all the honey supers off, and I would probably do the same thing with the Demaree. If I have one, I'll put. Now with the Demaree, if there's a deep on the top, I might take that box and drop it down. And if you got a deep on the bottom, queen excluder, however many supers in the middle, and a deep on the top, I would probably drop that deep down, because I always thought the deep was to collect honey out of. What I found out listening to David Burns is you kind of rotate those back and forth.
Yeah.
To keep multiple bees. So it's not really necessarily for honey collection, although I guess it could be in some cases. But I think I might just drop that top box down if it's not full of honey, if I was to do it, and then just put the lid on, and that way that would capture a lot of your bees. But one thing here in Alabama and here in the South, you want a lot of bees to be in that colony. You want it to be packed out when you take the honey off, because that is when your pests, your hive beetles, and all kinds of different pests will begin to attack those colonies. And so you want to have a big field force, a lot of bees just hanging out, because they will help defend that colony. My experience has been, if there's a dearth, which there typically is after the honey season down here, there's not a lot of swarming that happens, although it is possible. You will not be able to believe how many bees, like the whole outside of the box are covered with bees. But within just a very few weeks, those numbers drop dramatically because those foragers begin to die off. And then what I found last year is I had like the perfect size colony in my double deeps and deep, whatever I had usually was like the perfect amount of bees in there, and it worked out well. So that's just one thing to consider. Some areas have longer honey seasons where the flows come in longer. You may have issues with swarming if you do that, but here that usually is not the case. You'll have one here or there. Like I'll go out in August and I'll be like, what is that swarm doing in a tree? And usually little wimpy ones. Sometimes they've got multiple queens. I'm not sure if they're trying to supersede a queen, or if they're just, if there's some kind of issue with pest or whatever in the hive, or why they swarm sometimes in the summer like that. But it's pretty rare. Usually we're about to hit swarm season right away here through about end of April into May, and then it usually backs off a lot here. So my experience is don't be intimidated by a lot of bees in your colonies after honey flow, because typically, at least here, they don't tend to swarm. Also, you can utilize those bees if you want to draw out foundation. You pull it off, you can slap a box on there, maybe pull a frame of brood up, and then feed them. And even during a dearth, and they can dry out some really good foundation, because you have all those foragers there that want something to do. And so, that's one thing I've done. Cayman does every year is he just I think he just puts the second box on, or does he do splits or whatever Cayman does? He draws out boxes of foundation after the honey supers come off for that next 2 or 3 weeks, while you still have those foragers. Just a couple of thoughts there.
Yeah, no, I do know So day one, of course, is work, just because that's when you're doing your manipulations. You're doing your vertical split. Day 8 is work, and there's no way around it. You have to stick to the timeline. So I'll have to go through all the frames and just check for cells, things like that, very thoroughly. You can't be lazy about it, just because you'll defeat the whole process if you end up with virgins running around up top. And then it's rinse and repeat after that. So I plan on doing it twice. I know Lawrence said in his area he can get away with doing the vertical split once, and with his flow, he's fine with that. He said there's absolutely no swarming, but that's the UK. I plan on doing it twice, so that way I'm hoping that they pretty much said that it's a 21 day, like, you won't really have much swarming. So if I can go, even through 2 cycles, that'd be 42 days where I totally just annihilate the swarm mode of that colony. We'll see how it plays out. But, Mother Nature has to cooperate. There's a lot of factors that are going to have to cooperate. So we'll see how it goes, though. I'm looking forward to it. Really, I am. Yeah. Bruce, thank you much, buddy. Splitting bees real soon for you. Yeah, real soon.
You guys remember those peg jump games from Cracker Barrel?
Oh yeah, yep.
Well, have gotten so ridiculously politically correct that it doesn't have like all the same. Leave one, you're pretty smart. Leave two, you're whatever. But it used to be, and it's like what, leave 4 and you're an ignoramus. I feel like an ignoramus right now, because I realize that I only have the mental capacity to absorb the things that make sense to me. And you guys are talking about the Demaree, and I just feel like I'm looking at the Cracker Barrel peg jump game, and like I've just left like 16 pegs in there. I just feel like an ignoramus. I'm just trying to understand the timelines and all the things there. So, Brian, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see see what you come up with this year.
I tell you what, I mean, if you were closer, it'd be too darn hard. I'd say, could run out of Demaree in the learning yard. But
I mean, maybe we have a special guest, Mr. Vice President Brian Coper.
Yeah,
help walk us through. This year, Brian, I think I'm gonna come pay you a visit and come check out your bee yard with you and do a video. And I'm going down to see Bruce here in a couple weeks. We're gonna have fun doing that. I think maybe I'm gonna come up and to your place and come see you. And
I won't make you work.
I'll just sit in your thinking chair and watch you work.
That's it. Yeah. I won't make you work. So
you wouldn't be able to do that, Greg. You'll have to be in those hives, Greg. You can't keep your hands out. Which is fine. Brian doesn't mind, I don't think.
No, I love.
You know what though? I've gotten to visit some other people's operations, and I 100% have the ability to keep my mouth shut and just observe and let them, because when you do that, then I get to see their approach through their eyes, but more importantly through their hands. And when you do that, you start to just kind of see how somebody else does it, rather than look over. If you're looking too much over their shoulder and you got the hive tool in your hand ready to go, then they're always thinking, and that's actually one of the biggest challenges with actually putting on a good learning yard, is at times turn on where you're 100% the teacher and everyone's the student, and then in a split second being able to turn the hive tool and the smoker over to somebody in a way that they're comfortable just being them in the hive, and then you just study what they do and then give positive reinforcement. And then when there's an opportunity and they want any kind of correction or recommendation, then give it. Teaching well is very hard. It's very easy just to do things how you do it, and here's how we do that, and just copy what I do. But to actually to be able to get into the mind of somebody what they're thinking when they do every single movement or manipulation, and then look at that, try to understand what their goal is, and then see if there's something that you can do to help facilitate that in an even more meaningful way. That's a real challenge. But anyways, back to the pegboard. I'm still an ignoramus. Left all the pegs on the board there.
Well, yeah, I think the Demaree, I might think it's a pretty good tool and believe in it, but I've had pretty good success doing it the old-fashioned way with my bees. And my biggest concern before we move on, I thought that the whole principle was you wanted to put that deep on top and then harvest honey out of that deep. And I think some people do it that way. I really just don't want to have 100 deep boxes, but that's really not the principle. Is you kind of rotate those boxes back and forth to keep the thing full of bees. So anyway, I don't know. Anyway, we could do a whole topic just on that, I guess, if we wanted to.
The 30-second breakdown of it, when you shift, let's say
the brood,
you have your 10 frames, and let's say you shift 7 of them up top, you're going to have, they pretty much say it's a 21-day cycle, because what's a brood cycle?
Yeah,
so yes, you may get some, if you're in this massive nectar flow, you might have them backfilling some of that brood that's up top as that brood is emerging out. But then if after 21 days you take the brood that's in the bottom and shift it again,
that's right,
they're going to yank that nectar out of those cells. That way Queen Mama has room to lay. So if you stay on top of it, it's supposed to work. I mean, I know people that do it, and they are just, I mean, if you ask them, they'll say, it has doubled my honey crop. It's done this, it's done that. But you have no wiggle room with the timeline. You have to, when you start that process, it's just like, in a way, it's like grafting, Greg. When you
That's what it sounds like. And that sounds like this is as demanding as cell starters and finishing and grafting and incubating.
It
and
is.
I understand that crystal clear. But well, it'll be interesting to see how it works out for you.
From what I understand, it's day 1 work, day 8 work, and then after day 8, when you go down and smash any cells down, there's nothing up top at that point that they could, in a sense, develop into a queen. So then you have a 13-day buffer where that's when you rest and recoup. And then at a 21-day mark, in a sense, that refreshes and could, if you do another vertical split and manipulate again, that then becomes another day 1. So day 1, and then you got to go day 8, check for cells again. So it's just a non-stop process. But I think there's a couple the flow, of course, that's going to dictate. So, and Justin asked a good question there. Are you going to make splits from those cells? No, just because I want those large colonies so that I have
50.
this.
He's going to do it.
I want a massive colony so that I have a massive field force to capitalize on the flow.
Brian's going to split them. Don't let him fool you with this smart talk. He's going to see those cells. He's going to all of a sudden those seeds that Greg Burns has been planting to make a queen and make a split and grow this is going to pop out. He's going to look around and make sure no one's looking. He's going to be just shoving splits and everywhere. Cardboard boxes, Amazon boxes, hashtag Brian150.
No, I have something else in mind that I'll we don't have enough time tonight, but this question, I mean, this will pretty much be for Bruce, because at this point, with still 5 inches of snow on the ground, you plan on equalizing your colonies anytime soon? I'm not.
Yeah, I have 64 queens. Theoretically, supposedly 64 queens coming next weekend, the 20th. And they'll be here before then, but that's when we're going to actually incorporate those queens into my operation. Whether it be, most of them will probably be splits. We may replace some queens here or there, but Greg's going to be here, as well as a couple of other people, Derek, and then another guy named Paul, local guy, that's going to come over and help. So we're going to have a nice little crew out there helping. And so as far as equalizing goes, just briefly, personally, I don't do a ton of equalizing. And maybe that's, some people would say that's wrong. I just personally like to kind of let the strong colonies be strong, and the weak colonies, just, if they're going to be weak, I'll combine them or fizzle them out, because I feel like if I keep stealing the brood from the strong colonies and give it to the weak, if you put strong, now sometimes during certain times of the year it may be a little different, but basically if you're in a really good part of the year, if everybody's just kind of on equal footing, everybody started off kind of the same, everybody's just in good shape, and then some of them start to fade. If you start feeding those colonies good, not feeding them, but putting big sheets of brood into those weaker colonies, if the queen is weak, then to me, I feel like I'm chasing, a negative thing there, because that colony, a month down the road is going to be weak again because the queen can't keep up. And so personally, my philosophy, whether it's intentional or not over the years, has been just really build up the big colonies, let them be nice, big and strong. And then the smaller colonies, I'm getting better at just incorporating them and combining them and just kind of replacing the queen, and just kind of, I don't keep throwing brood at colonies that aren't pretty strong. I don't think it's always a bad thing to do that. Some people utilize that a lot. I know some people probably do some equalizing before they send them off for pollination, because they need to have an 8-frame average or whatever that is. And when they get there, they need to look strong and be strong enough to pollinate those almonds or whatever they're pollinating. And there are other reasons for doing that, but personally, I don't do a ton of equalizing. I do more splitting and combining and things like that than anything else. But I will occasionally, I'll throw, especially one thing, if I don't have any queens available, this is something I do, and I think we probably all do this. If you have a hive that was a strong, say just a strong 10-frame hive or more, and then you go back and the brood looks spotty, you can always just take or can't find a queen, or it looks like there's no queen in there. One last ditch effort you can do is you can throw a frame with some eggs in there, and stuff, and just see if they make a queen out of it. Sometimes I've had some really nice queens. I've fixed some colonies that way, but that is risky too, because they got to have the resources. That's best done in a situation where you have plenty of nectar coming in, plenty of pollen coming in, and plenty of resources, or you're feeding them like crazy. It doesn't work very well if it's in August and there's a dearth going on and you throw a frame in there. They may make a queen, but it's probably going to be a wimpy queen. So anyway, just some thoughts on that. But yeah, I don't do a lot of equalizing. Greg, do you do equalizing much? What's your
Well, there are
philosophy on that?
times when I rob from the poor to give to the rich, and I give to the middle class to give to the poor, and I give to the middle class to give to the. I look at
Yeah, that's right.
a couple different, and for me, it's breaks out into two kind of categories. One is nuke yards, and in nuke yards, I
Okay.
100% equalize, because the goal is to produce a colony that's on its way. And in a nuke yard, when you're making splits, you might be making splits where it's heavy in a field force and light in nurse bees, or vice versa. And because of that, you can go through this 3 to 4 week time period where they're a little behind or a little ahead, not because of sickness or queen prolificness. It's just the timing of the assets that they had inside the colony, meaning the age of the field force. So because of that, I 100% will have no problem equalizing in a queen yard. However, in colonies or a yard that is designated for honey production, I am not going to break down something in doubles or triples because I'm scared of how big it's going to get. I won't do that. I will let those monsters, I will let them rip, feed them supers, and let them capitalize on their field force for sure. If something happens inside of a yard that is for honey production, however, and something's kind of going downhill, I will 100% rob from the poor and give it to the rich. I will get that comb and that brood and those bee assets into something that can move the overall unit, which is a strong colony, forward, and just pinch that queen or move that queen way off and not even care so much. Because in a honey production yard, we're not talking about a nuke yard. We're not talking about something that's growing and getting its feet underneath of it. It's colonies that are specifically, more than likely, have overwintered. They're coming out of the spring. They're real big boomers. They're ready to rip. If something looks way off or they're way behind all of a sudden, it was probably either a swarm and there's just something small left behind. They're not going to make a honey crop anyways. Or there is sickness or virus, or a queen has failed. That has likely gone on. I'll look at the situation. As long as it's not sickness or a viral thing, and it's just a queen who is failing, or they had already they had swarmed and gotten away from me, I will 100% combine all that into a more productive colony to get those more productive. Does that make sense?
That's a good clarification, Greg. I was referring mostly to my production colonies, but yeah, for different purposes, obviously you need to get everything equalized. If you got to give that queen a good head start. And what I found when I make nukes as well is some of them end up with, or for whatever reason, fewer bees than others. I'm not sure if they drift or what. And in that case, it would be good. You could easily add some brood in there, maybe strengthen a new nuke that you're trying to get on a good footing. That makes a lot of sense.
Bees don't all that's. I mean, how do I say this respectfully? Bees don't have everything necessarily figured out that their end goal equals individual colony success.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you saying? What do you mean that we want to pretend that the bees have all this figured out and they know what they're doing and they're going to be moving forward? They are moving forward into an outcome. That outcome may not necessarily be aligned with production and brood or honey. And if you say, well, what are you talking about, Greg? Well, there's a great book called The Dark Side of the Hive that digs in a little bit deeper on some of the things that actually happen inside of the colony. But one of the things that come to mind to me that bees, what are they actually doing? Let's not talk about it because we don't have time, but I'll leave you with this little thought. Laying workers, for instance. You have a colony and there's laying workers, and here are all these worker bees laying eggs. How does that move that colony forward? Yet they still do it, and it can be many of them, and they will go to town until death do they part, laying eggs that turn into drones. Why do they do that?
But
I've got an idea.
In a way, though, when a colony goes to a laying worker, it's not a complete failure because the genetics are passed along.
Bingo. They are still, and this is the beautiful thing. And where are we at here? We're about an hour and a half in. Here's maybe a thought we can start to close with. Think about this, guys. This is a powerful thought. Is Pastor Larry Hancock on here? Him and I have been talking a little bit back and forth, but I think this would plant the seed for a very amazing sermon. Beekeepers who are pastors or are sermon minded, there's always something. So I'm going to leave you guys all with this. You have a colony who it seems as though that outcome doesn't align with their intended purpose here on Earth. And if we try to understand what the intended purpose of a colony on Earth, it is to grow. It is to then swarm. In Proverbs, a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. You look at a swarm, that's exactly what a swarm is doing. These colonies are doing everything to build up for the next generations, right? So you get into a scenario where something has happened to the queen and they go into laying workers, and yet still even in a situation where these bees have no queen, there is no future generations that they will know inside of the colony. They still yet, until they die, are moving the community forward. And what do I mean by that is even until their death, they are working and bettering the community by laying those eggs to make drones so that any other queens in the area have something to mate with to keep those genetic lines forward, although they will never see it inside of that colony.
Yep.
To me, that's a powerful thing to think about. How many times in life are we looking at a situation where it is the end of the road and there's not necessarily a positive outcome for us? Beekeeper Carmine here, perfect word, selflessness. They are literally going to finish out their time on Earth and everything that they can do in preparing a generation somewhere for success by planting drones in that colony for future matings. Like that is powerful. Reminds me of an ancient Greek proverb that says, a society grows great when old men plant trees under the shade they know they'll never sit under. To me, that's a beautiful thing. And you look at laying workers and we get so wound up about it, but there is such beauty and such an incredible life lesson to learn, even in a situation where it looks like there is no positive outcome.
Good stuff. Well, I tell you what, I'm the short, what's coming up next week. I have the short message. And I'm going to share a screen real quick. I've been sharing, sharing means caring. It's what I've been told. Look at this. Look at that. That's for next week.
Look at that. Would you look at that?
Well, now Friday's
50s.
38, but 47, 47, 47, 53, 55, 51. So it's coming, folks. You got to get ready. Got to get ready. So in the next week, though, up here, Sunday's club meeting. So I'll be chatting there, prepping for 26. It's very key. I mean, if the season is going to come up very fast, so if you're not ready, you're going to be behind an 8 ball, and you're going to be, running with your tail between your legs the entire beginning of the season. So I think here very shortly, what I'm going to do, and I probably should do it in the next week, is go over and get a final count as far as equipment. What's there? What do I need to do? I had everything pretty much cleaned up towards the ending of the fall, so that was just a huge task that I was able to get done. But next week here, I'm going to be getting excited just to see that bee flight. Make sure that those days when I can get some feed, I am thinking there's 2 days there where it's going to be above 40, even at night. I was thinking about throwing a tote somewhere out just with some, thicker syrup. And I know those girls will get on that stuff. So, cause they'll be out just looking for anything. So it's going to be here quick, but next week though, yeah, I'm excited to have those warm temps up here. So now I know you two fellas, got some stuff planned in the next week. So whichever one of you, Bruce.
Yeah, you showed your temperatures. I don't know if people can see this. Can you make this? Can you make it bigger, Brian?
I don't want to.
Okay, you don't have to.
Wow, look at that.
So you can see we're in the 70s.
70s.
Every day except when we're in the 70s. Next Friday, whoops.
Wow.
When Greg is going to be here doing splits with me, it's going to be 77.
60s and 70s.
Wow.
The whole time.
Lows are the lows. Yeah. The highs are in the 70s.
6s and 7s. Look at that. I did it.
It's so uncool when the dads do that.
I know. Yeah, really. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna this coming weekend. I'm gonna just go through and crack some lids and look at how they're looking, see how the bees are looking inside. Maybe try to mark a few colonies I think need to be split, which I think it'll be quite a few. I'm working on my my feeding setup with my toad and my pump. I'm getting that all. I'm basically re-plumbing it with some new tougher plumbing and trying to get it working a little better. And so Friday, my first thing I'm going to try to do is go out and get that thing running, get the syrup all mixed up the way I want it with the Hive Alive in it, and the liquid Hive Alive supplement in there. And then I'm going to go out and I probably will just maybe throw some open feed out to them. I think we're in a little bit of a between right now, maybe a little bit of a dearth. I'm not sure. I'm going to be able to tell better. I didn't get him this past weekend because obviously I was up in Wisconsin, so I need to get in them and just see. And then just kind of hope and pray they're good and we can get 60 plus splits out of them in the following weekend when Greg's here and a couple of other cool guys coming to help me. So that's the plan. And as far as videos go, there'll probably be some coming, especially when we're making these splits. I hope to be able to shoot a little bit of footage and Greg's coming kind of like we did last year. There's going to be some folks I think coming to pick up some equipment. I assume that's going to be Thursday, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And anyway, it's exciting. I'm going to get a skid of boxes from Greg, the new copper / wax dipped into Hive boxes, the propolas, and the boxes I got last year are beautiful, and these will be even more beautiful, I think, with the copper dip. And so, looking forward to a really good time, and looking forward to Greg being here as well as some other folks getting to hang out. And nothing quite like that. It all comes back to the community. The bees are awesome. We all rally around these little critters in the box, but really it's about the community, and that's what this Stream Team's all about. And I just appreciate you guys. Had a great time up in Wisconsin, and the friendship, just after 4 years, we're still going strong, and the Stream Team's still here, and we're still plugging along. And I feel like you guys are two of my best friends in the world. So I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, likewise, Bruce and Brian. And the cool thing to think about is you know, one of the things that we have been saying on the podcast and in our videos for, I mean, as long as I can remember, is hashtag be the lighthouse, and that's such an important thing because, you know, it's when you can be a lighthouse to folks who are also going to be a lighthouse, you know, that light becomes an exponential mirror into this world, and that's such a powerful thing to consider. It's not just one light in a sea of darkness, which still creates an enormous amount of light, but it's one lighthouse lighting another, lighting another, lighting another, lighting another, all shining God's light to this world. That's a powerful thing when we are all doing that together, and when we get to spend time with each other, that just grows and blossoms in such a powerful way. And so I'm really grateful for the times Bruce and Brian and the time that we get to spend with our viewers, folks who just mean so much to us. So it's been great to see everybody. There's a lot of opportunities coming up where we'll get to spend some more time with folks as well. I'm getting ready. I'm really looking forward to coming down and getting some bee sting therapy and just getting some propolis on my hands and some bee stings under my nails, I'm sure, and just kind of get fired up. I can tell you last year going down working with Bruce and seeing some of the guys and gals down there, it just fills you up again. And so for me, it's almost needs to be like an annual annual thing to go down there and get started. But looking forward to seeing Bruce and a bunch of the fellas and some of the ladies down there. It's going to be a great time. From there, we've got February 27th and 28th, going over to Wheeling, West Virginia for the West Virginia Bee Fair. That's going to be a great opportunity to be the fellowship and spend time with some folks there. So come see us at the West Virginia Bee Fair, February 27th and 28th. From there, March 7th, we're going to the Tri-County Spring Workshop right here in Ohio. I know that we'll see Brian again there. That'll be great. Michael from 21st Bee, he'll be there as well. So we'll have some of the same crew kind of get to hang out again together. That'll be a lot of fun. On March the 15th, we'll get to visit with the Mahoning Club, Mr. Vice President Brian Kober's club. I don't even know if I couldn't even hold a candle to Brian's presentations there, but it's going to be a lot of fun to meet those folks and spend some time with them. And then March 17th, we'll go visit with the Maumee Valley Beekeepers. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then April 4th, the Sandusky River Bee Club. And then it's going to be just full-on bees, I think, from them. We might try to sneak in one or two more clubs this year, but I love doing that. I love spending time with different folks from different parts of the country, different parts of the state. So that's kind of where we're at right now here at the shop. We literally just got in last night from the Midwest Honeybee Expo. From there, from when that expo was over, we drove west for another 6.5 hours to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for a nice visit with our friends over at Premier Bee Products. And then Susie and I we tailed it back home and just got in last night, and now it's just full on getting things and ship shape here, getting things squared away for all the orders. So that's been great. I know right now a lot of folks have been checking in on their bees, and whatever that outcome is, a lot of folks have been reaching out and getting their orders in for nukes and for packages. So if you're listening to this and you are in the state of Ohio or a surrounding state, we're starting to really fill up those pickup dates. The first one's March 28th. We got a couple in April for package pickups. We also have 2 opportunities for nukes, overwintered nukes, and also spring nukes. So if you need bees and looking for the very best in equipment, check us out at naturesimagefarm.com. We're running some killer deals right now on package bees and nukes. So visit us, take a look, and then give us a call or shoot us a message if you have any questions. That's kind of on our forefront, on our mind right now, is just it's here we are. The season starts right now when we really start to get into the thick of snow melt and bee flights, and it's time to just keep her moving. Outside of that, we make sure you go check out the video we just released today and see what the 4 bro chachos were up to. It was a lot of fun. We've had a lot of great videos. We've been busy. Jake's been busy just pushing a bunch of videos out. We've got a video with Nathalie B, treatment-free top bar beekeeping, a video with Emily from BeeFit, Dr. David Martine, talking a really great, he's a counselor and has a lot of great things to say about the healing nature of bees and what it does to our mind as beekeepers. Joel Cronk, a video with Joel Cronk and Cayman's mom on the channel as well, as long as 4C's Bee. The list goes on and on and on. We're getting caught up on a lot of great videos. So if you're looking for some binge watching on the Nature's Image Farm channel, be sure to check us out. I know you'll enjoy your time there. Fellas, next Wednesday, 8 p.m., whose channel are we going to be on? We're going to be on the Bruce's Bees channel. Let's see here. Let's look at that calendar real quick, Bruce. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I might be on the road down to you.
Yeah.
Or
well, if so, we can either
I'll just tune in from the road, maybe.
Yeah, Brian, I can do something, and if you're on the road or at a hotel or something, you can tune in. If not, we'll figure it out. We'll go ahead. We will go live, I think, for sure, though. So
either way, yeah, very good.
We'll figure that out.
Awesome.
On the channel, Bruce's Bees next week at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central.
Well, we want to thank everybody, as always, for tuning in, spending your evening with us. We can't thank you enough. In closing here, we want to remind you, to take the time to make that personal connection with somebody. And let's think twice about those rebounding, responsive, ugly comments that we want to leave back and forth with folks. Let's try to better understand who they are as a person, who they are as a beekeeper. Give them some grace, as we all just try to do the best we can with our bees. Until next time, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.